Before we start, let's pray. V'ner Shabbat Shemayim, our Father in heaven, God of our fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Lord, we submit ourselves to you, and we just thank you. We thank you for your gloriousness, your majesty, your grace, your love for us. Father, we just ask that your Ruach would fill this place. Father, bring peace, bring your shalom. Father, we ask that you would open our eyes and our ears so we can see and hear the wonders that are in your Torah. And Father, as John teaches today, may your words be on his lips. Father, may you order his thoughts and give him your heart. And Father, we just love you. And we just marvel at how much you care for us. And we return love back to you. And we just want to draw closer to you and marvel at who you are. Hashem Yeshua. Amen.
Good to get back up here. A lot of you have probably noticed that I've been conspicuously absent. You've probably just been really down and out about it, right? Going, where is John? No. Adam's been doing a great job, and one of the reasons why I haven't been up here as frequently as normal is we've got a project that most of you are aware of, and it's been consuming my time along with some other folks' time in here, and we've been making a lot of progress, but it's kind of been a huge distraction. However, that does not mean that I haven't been listening to you guys make comments about what you want to hear, and then me doing the research to actually make a presentation. And I've heard over the last 6 months, as we were wrapping up the study on the book of Revelation, that people they had questions, they were being confronted by friends or enemies, whatever, about issues in regards to the existence of God, more specifically creation, evolution. How do you defend all those kinds of things? Are we just expected to have blind faith and just shove that in the unbeliever's face? And is that supposed to work? Or are we supposed to have something more? So what I've been doing over the last couple of months especially is I've been doing some research way beyond just creation, evolution. Many of you have probably heard our teachings on that. We spend several weeks just establishing not so much biblical, but scientific evidence that supports the Bible. And it's profound. And we'll get into that not today, but in future Shabbats. This will last for a while. We'll kind of come and go as Adam and I trade off topics, and the feasts are coming. So what I want to do is, with this evolution creation topic, I decided, let's pull back and let's substantiate the evidence for the existence of God, because we can fairly easily use the Bible to establish evidence. But what about somebody that doesn't believe the Bible? I don't recognize the authority of Matthew or Moses or any of these guys that wrote books. How they want substantial evidence for the existence of God, for them to be able to even just consider your ideas about this God that we find in the Bible. So that's what we're about. Today, I want to lay in some groundwork for that, and maybe we'll get to the first or second argument. We'll see how we do. Why do we bother with having any ability to answer people's questions, or even think and research on this topic? I think there's at least two good reasons. One, I bet you that there's people sitting in this room, and I know it was my case when I was a young boy. I wanted to know how to defend my faith, because I became a believer when I was 4, and very soon as I started to think, I've always kind of been scientifically minded, and I wanted to be able to substantiate what I believed. outside of the biblical text, and certainly inside the biblical text as well. But most of my friends didn't recognize the biblical text. So I wanted to go, how can I scientifically back up what I believe? So I think that there's two reasons why we need to be familiar with how to defend our faith. One, because we get attacked, the media, and maybe the world, people in the world that we associate with will attack our beliefs from a scientific or philosophical perspective. We need to know how to defend them and be able to be a witness to them. And two, it's really nice when you can go, I know the answer to that argument, and it doesn't challenge my faith like it did, like it used to. Right? Because there's arguments out there that are very intimidating. And when you hear them, God does not want you to hold up the blind faith response. Well, I just believe it because I believe it. That's not how God operates. God expects us to have answers for what we believe. And to substantiate that, let's take a look at a couple of verses. One of them is in Acts 17, 2 and 3. Let me read it. And according to Paul's custom, he went to them, and for 3 Shabbats reasoned with them from the Scriptures, explaining and giving evidence that the Messiah had to suffer and rise again from the dead, and saying that Yeshua, whom I am proclaiming to you, is the Messiah. So what did he do? He just said, just believe. I'm a trustworthy person, just believe on my word. Just believe because it's a warm, fuzzy feeling. It feels good to believe. It may. No, he didn't do that, did he? He brought evidence, in this case, from the Scriptures, to buttress what he believed. He wasn't just a blind faith advocate. He wasn't up there on stage whipping it up, getting people all emotional about and using that to support what they believe. I think that's fine, but it's not fine if that's all you have. You have to have evidence. And that's what Paul was about in these verses. A few verses later, in verse 11, it says, now these were more noble-minded than those in Thessalonica, for they received the word with great eagerness, examining the Scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. So they examined. Paul is an advocate of examining the Scriptures. How good are we at that? I think largely we're good at that. We don't just take things by faith. We want to examine the Scriptures, and by examining the Scriptures, what should it do? It should buttress our faith, give it a reason for our faith. God never asked his people, I'm ringing up here, you could maybe solve that problem. God never asked his people to believe anything blindly. He always brought evidence. And so that's what Paul is doing. In John 21, and 25, it says, this is the disciple who is testifying to these things and wrote these things. These things are about the Messiah. And we know that his testimony is true. And there were also many other things which Yeshua did, which if they were written in detail, I suppose that even the world itself would not contain the books that would be written. What John is doing is saying, I've recorded a whole pile of stuff, a whole bunch of historical facts. Why? Because I want to give you enough evidence to support what I'm asking you to believe in. It's not blind faith that John was asking. He was going, I'm giving you all kinds of historical facts about what has occurred And these facts are there for us to believe, not blindly. Not blindly. And then John 14. John 14:11. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Otherwise, believe because of the works themselves. So what John is saying here is, don't just believe blindly. Look at the miracles. Look at the works that this man God that I'm writing about performed. That should help you substantiate your faith. And we can do the same thing. Look at your own lives, or the lives or situations that you've seen during your life. There's been some miraculous moments. You've seen intervention. Some people just ascribe it to good luck. But I think if you're fair, you'll see that sometimes God intervenes in the lives of men and women, and He blesses them, helps them, and supports them. So there's certainly, in the Bible, we find motivation to study the Scriptures, to discover the God. There's evidence in the Bible that is portrayed that will help us buttress our faith. But does the Bible also say that God can be found extra biblically?
Yes.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Does everybody know where it is? At least one. It's in Romans 1 and 2. Let's go there. I'd love to read those entire 2 chapters. They are absolutely profound, but I won't. This is a huge dissertation that the writer of Romans, he starts off a conversation with differentiating the Jews and the Gentiles, and how even without the law, everybody has no excuse, because the law is evident in the existence of the Creator God, is evident by the Creator itself. And then he goes and starts talking about the law. It says that the Gentiles will be judged without the law because they knew the law by seeing the creation. And the Jews will be judged by the law because I gave it to them. And they violated, so I'm going to judge them for it. And it's just a way cool. You ought to spend a little time studying these 2 chapters. But let me read verses 18 through 20.
Where are you, John?
Romans 1:18 says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because that which is known about God is evident within them. God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes," so the qualities of His personhood, "His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen," by all these people, "being understood through what has been made or created, so that they are without excuse." That doesn't sound much fun. So, here's your answer to the guy that says, well, what about the, little tribe in deep, darkest Africa? They never had a missionary come in with the Bible. They never were given them. What about the American Indians? They never were given Bibles, before a white man showed up. So this idea of religion and the biblical God of creation is just, it's just a bunch of hoo-ha. But no, what God is saying is, even without the Word of God, He has revealed himself to all of mankind. Thus, they all know that there is a creator, and they're going to be without excuse when they stand before God, and in their life they chose not to believe what God evidently put in their face, that there was a single creator God that created them and the world around about them. We all have a choice, is what God is saying. So we see that God is saying his word, there's evidence for his existence. And outside his word, there's evidence for his existence. The Bible, as well as the creation, scream forth the fact that God does in fact exist. Now, there's a lot of people who would disagree, especially with that latter point, that the creation screams forth the existence of God. And what I want to do is go through some of this, the evidence for the existence of God outside of the Bible. I've taught on these topics before, and I skipped the part that I just went through, and I never looked up any verses. So I caught it because I never had any verses embedded in my talk. So I go, I'm not going to make that fatal mistake again. And I want to embed some verses in it. So there's your verses. I did talk about some biblical verses this time. And there'll be some more. I've got some more verses that I've embedded in. But mostly, what you're going to see over the next few weeks is what I'm going to try to do is explain from various scientific perspectives how they actually support the existence of God. In fact, they support the existence of God in such a lopsided way, in contrast to the lack of support for the non-existence of God by science. But you don't hear that in the media, do you? The media, they're selling atheism or something else. They're not selling and supporting. When evidence is found that supports God, you never see that, that never gets in print. But when they find something that maybe alludes to something that supports something from nothing, i.e. evolution, boy, they jump all over that. And that's what you see in the printed press or online today. What these skeptics try to accuse believers, the Jewish and the Christian believers of, is they always frame it like this. They talk about how religion is based on blind faith, while science and rational thinking are based in facts and observable evidence. But is that distinction really there, or is that just a con? I can assure you that it is a con. This idea, though, scares away people from even dipping their toe inside the realm of the Bible, because anybody, at least these skeptics try to promote the idea that anybody that would think about such things as believing in a creator God is really just loopy, right? You're denigrated, you're thought of as stupid, non-scholarly, certainly not supported, and what you believe certainly is not supported by scientific evidence, right? You've probably seen that, felt it. It's not true. And so what we want to do is we want to, in our minds, start to be able to answer the critic, even for our own sake, if not for other people that God may bring our way. You ever wonder, some people go, hey, God doesn't use me much. I wouldn't be more anxious to, do some more stuff, but he's not. Well, my advice is no more stuff. Yes, relationship is the starting point, but when you build a relationship, you start knowing more stuff about the other person, right? So the more you know about the Bible, the more you know how to defend the Bible, the more you know about basic scientific responses to accusations against your faith based scientifically, the more you're able to respond, guess what? God's going to go, I choose you to represent me today because I'm going to bring somebody into your life that's going to need what you have. If you don't have it, you're not as useful. So become more useful, right? It's kind of like being a builder. If you know how to do plumbing, roofing, framing, and concrete, you're pretty useful. But if you know how to don't know how to do any of those things, you're still useful, because there's always chores for people that have a strong back, but you're not quite as useful, right? So what the laborer needs to do is start learning some technical skills, and so should we. We should endeavor to learn some technical skills, some technical knowledge, so we can, one, rest our own questions, and two, be the light that God asks us to be. There's multiple fields of science, and I'm going to list a few here that support what we're going to be learning about. Certainly biology, the study of living organisms. There is tons of evidence. We are not going to touch on that today. That will be in the future when we start talking about the creation evolution arguments, but certainly biology. There are vast amounts of evidence that support what the person who believes that God created the universe and the earth in a not too distant past. Certainly geology, the study of the earth and the tectonic plates, there's lots of evidence. There's different interpretive modes, thereby some people claim multiple billions of years for the age of the earth, but they're seeing it from a perspective that is not true. And we'll get into that, but not today. Again, that's for you in the future. Archaeology, the study of human history. This is a fascinating field, and God has given us a huge wealth of information that just overloads the evolutionist. The physics, the study of the nature and how it impacts the environment and the universe. The study of the four forces and how they impact the universe and our environment. Anybody tell me what four forces are? Gravity, the weak electrical force, the strong electrical force, and electromagnetic forces, right? Actually, it's the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. We'll get into that. I don't know if we're doing that today or not, but it's very fascinating. Those four forces scream out of a creator, not an evolutionary. Cosmology, the study of origins. Astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, study of celestial bodies in the universe. Physiology, the study of biological systems. And certainly philosophy, which is the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence. Fascinating guy. I've been listening to William Craig, and I'll tell you, I love guys like this. You can go on YouTube and just type in his name, and he's got hundreds of lectures and debates that he's done. He's like this extremely intelligent, and I love sitting under these people and listening to them talk. It's kind of like when I was younger, I had Walter Martin that I would sit under. He taught at the church that I was attending. So instead of, I was attending Melody Land down in Anaheim when I was a young man, and instead of going to Ralph Wilkerson's sermons, I would go to Walter Martin's classes, which is just in the meeting hall right outside the main round theater of Melody Land across from Disneyland. And Walter Martin was my fan. I loved him. And today, in fact, I don't know if we'll get that far today, but one of the things that I still use is information and excellent arguments that Walter originally came up with. When you listen to these debates, it's very interesting. Here you have leading atheists arguing against Bill, Craig. And, I mean, the guy's very scholarly. Does not use the Bible for his arguments. He uses complete scientific reasoning. And I've listened to scores, I mean, 50, 60, 70 of these lectures and debates. And it's fascinating. Usually, one debater will get up there first and talk for 20 minutes, and then the other guy will have his turn. And here's how I characterized Bill. So he gets up there and he lists evidence for the existence of God. And then the atheist gets up there, and he basically tries to pick apart little nuances in Bill's presentation. But I'm going, well, wait a minute, where are your evidences? Where's your foundation? These atheists present no foundation of their own. They're just trying to shotgun the believer and his arguments. It's very fascinating. So you're left with, and what Bill is left with in his rebuttals lectures, as they trade back the podium back and forth, is trying to answer all the little pellets that the atheist just shot at him. But there's no, and it's interesting, Bill will come back and he goes, well, he'll refer to the debater's name, say it's Joe. He'll say, well, Joe didn't answer this foundational point that I made for the existence of God, nor did he say anything about the second issue that I made. The third issue, he said this, that, and the other, and then he rebuts. But there's no like, okay, the evolutionist or the atheist doesn't have his own points. Okay, here's the 3 points why I believe that I believe there's evidence for the non-existence of God. There's no such debate presentation. All it is shotgunning William or Bill's presentation. Very interesting. And so I'm left with this, that there is really no sound scientific evidence. If there was, let me tell you that these atheists would be jumping all over it for the non-existence of God. What they have is just trying to throw mud. And if they can, it's real easy to make somebody look bad when you just shoot all kinds of accusations. And then the other guy has 10 minutes to rebut. Well, it might take 10 minutes to rebut 1 or 2 of them. So he's left with, oh good, he didn't have time to talk about the other 5 things I threw at him. So you have to, it's just an interesting debate technique that I see these atheists using. There are at least 5 good arguments for the existence of God. And I'll read them off, and we're going to spend the next few weeks going over each one of these. First one is the existence of evil or or the moral argument. Very interesting. Why are there universal morals today? You know, how many think that it's okay to torture children? I'm saying, well, why? We'll get into why that is a profound question here. The cosmological argument. Why does anything exist? And Walter Martin I learned from Walter back in the early 70s. He had a great response. I'm anxious to go through Walter Martin's presentation that confronts the cosmological argument. Why do you exist? Why does the earth, why does the universe exist? There should be a cause. Well, what is that cause? Well, we're going to talk about causality and some other issues. It'll be fun, I think. And then there's the teleological argument, really a cool argument. It's what has happened over the last few decades, and it's profoundly impacting this whole atheistic evolutionary thinking, because these guys don't have an answer. What they've discovered is that the universe is finely tuned. It's not just thrown against the wall, okay, it works. You know, it's finely tuned. All these four forces, you know, including that I just mentioned, the speed of light, all of these qualities, if you mess with them in the slightest degree, like a hair's breadth, if you move the dial in the slightest degree, life doesn't work. So when I think there are up to 25, 30 of these qualities, that if you mess with the level that they operate in at all, life does not exist. We'll talk about that. It's a very fascinating argument. These first three establish that a God must exist. Hopefully that will be our conclusion. It doesn't establish the fact which God. There's gods that are believed. I mean, there's all kinds of gods. I mean, we're mostly atheists ourselves, right? I mean, we don't believe in the God of Buddha. We don't believe in Allah. We don't believe in, you know, all these religions. We don't believe in Thor. You know, we don't believe in Jupiter. Right? So we're mostly atheists. Except there's one God that we believe does exist, right? But the huge amount of gods that mankind has believed in the past, we don't believe, right? So these first three arguments just get us to the point, I think, that there must be a powerful, or there must be some powerful beings that brought this into existence. The last two arguments eliminate all the other choices but the God of the Bible. And the God of the Bible is the Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, the one who was prophesied, and to come and shed his blood for us. And so we're going to take a look at the evidence around, the historical evidence around the resurrection of Yeshua, and establish that this raises the Bible's God above, head and shoulders above all the other so-called gods. And then lastly, but I don't think leastly, is the internal witness that believers have once they come into the kingdom of God. Certainly atheists and non-believers of all sorts think that this is just baloney. That's not a very good argument. But let me tell you, if there wasn't one, if there wasn't an internal witness, they'd be all over it. Right? So the fact that we do have an internal witness is at least a support to us, and they can't use that as against us. If we didn't have an internal witness, they'd be going, yeah, you're just following this God. You don't even have any sort of inspiration. I mean, you do believe in it. But we do. And so that's evidence for us at the least.
Can you explain internal witness?
Internal witness is In your daily walk with God, when you live your life and make decisions, or when you read His Word or contemplate about His principles and how you should think and how you should act, you get inspired. You know that God is speaking to you. You know your decisions that you're making are the correct ones. Yes?
Conscience.
What?
Conscience.
You're conscious? Absolutely.
What was number 4?
Holy Spirit.
Number 4 was the resurrection of Yeshua. So we have the moral argument, the cosmological argument, why does anything exist, the teleological argument, fine-tuning, the resurrection of Yeshua, and the internal witness. Yes?
Probably. The 5th one is probably the most powerful because it's what Yeshua used to spread it across the world. He told his disciples, you've experienced this, go tell the world.
Exactly.
I mean, if there's not that, what is there?
Exactly. And, I'll rabbit trail here for a minute. I think it's Deuteronomy 4. What was supposed to be the inspiration? I'm on my soapbox again here. What was supposed to be the inspiration? The law. I believe it's Deuteronomy 4. It says that I have given, God speaking, not me, I have given you this body of laws. He's talking to Israel. So when we place them right in the center of the land masses, and all the main trading routes went through Israel. So when people come into your country, they will observe how holy and righteous and good your laws are. And the conclusion that they will make, this is John Klein's version, the conclusion that they will make is you must then have a really cool God. So when they go back home from traipsing through your land to do business, they will take me with them. The laws of God is what separates. It makes us peculiar. It makes us separate. You know, what does God call His people? He uses this word, kahal, which means called out ones. It gets interpreted the congregation of Israel. But what He's trying to do is He's saying, by obedience to the law, I'm calling you, if you are chosen, unfortunately, you're supposed to, I'm calling you out to be separate, not physically, but morally, from the world. And in so doing, you become a witness because everybody observes, you've got a great marriage. I want that. You're successful. Even when you're down and out, you're successful. You're not depressed. You're positive, even when you should be depressed. It's a huge witness. And why does that exist? Because you're following the principles explained in Torah. The law has not been abolished. So, most of the religions in the world are polytheistic. They believe in many gods. And most of these, in fact all of them that I looked up, believe that either the universe has always been here or that it popped out of nothing. For example, Hinduism believes that time is divided into 4 epochs where each universe was created and then destroyed. So it keeps, in fact, it's emulating the Big Bang Theory, which we'll get into. It kind of believes the same thing. It believes it explodes from nothing, nothing exploded into something, and then it loses energy and everything's spreading out, and finally it collapses back on itself and forms nothing again and explodes. Kind of a Big Bang cosmology there in Hinduism. In Buddhism, They believe that things have been around for a long time, and they believe, it's interesting, they believe in an infinite layer of universes, which we're going to get into as one of our discussions, but they believe in a pantheon of universes all occurring at the same time. And it's been here for a long, long time. So in our study, if we can show that it is more believable that evolution is not true, or because most of these polytheistic religions believe that man came to be through the evolutionary forces, or that the universe is not many billions or millions of years old, because they all believe that it's very old, or that the universe has not already been here, but came from nothing, it's not always been here, then we can eliminate all of these polytheistic religions, just simply by using the scientific method against these assumptions. There's one religion that proposes no God at all. We refer to them, they're atheists. It's a religion. They believe that the universe is billions of years old, most of them, not all, but most of them subscribe to the Big Bang Theory. In other words, there was one time when there was nothing, and now there's something, and that what happened was the Big Bang. So if we can show that, again, if the universe is young, or if the universe didn't always exist, or that no matter what the age of the universe is, science supports ideas that it's more reasonable to believe that something came from someone or something rather than something came from nothing, then we've destroyed the atheistic argument. There are three monolithic religions in the world, and they all come from, for the most part, the Bible. First one is Islam. They come from other biblical, they come from other religious books as well, but they subscribe to large sections of biblical thinking. Islam believes that the universe and the earth is very, very old. They believe in evolution, but not the evolution of man. They believe that Adam and Eve were plunked down during the course of evolution of everything else, and then Allah intervened and flopped down Adam and Eve during the course of time, and mankind has grown from those two individuals. Judaism, let me read this. I got this from a rabbinic scholar who's trying to wrap up what the current thinking is in the rabbinic world. In regards to the possibility that earlier worlds were brought into existence and subsequently destroyed by the Creator before He made our own earth in its present form and order, the rabbis have never made the acceptance or rejection of this and similar possibilities an article of faith binding on all Jews. They were willing to live with any theory that did not reject the basic truth that everything began, every beginning is from God. In fact, they were generally adverse to speculation about what was in the past and what will be in the future because, in their view, such questions transgress the limits of that which is knowable to man, or at best, it did not enhance man's understanding of his moral function. In other words, the rabbis promote the idea that we don't really care too much, and we'll accept all takers, all views that are out there, including the long age of the universe and the evolutionary concepts. Just don't mess with the idea that the beginning, however you choose to think that it began, started with God. So in other words, they're throwing out the literal view of Torah. Christianity is all over the map. There's Christians out there that believe in the literal translation of Genesis 1, where God created it in a week in the order that He presented. We'll get into that when we get to that portion. That'll be a lot of fun, I think. There's people that believe in the day-age theory, so each day of the creation week was an age. The word yom can mean age, but never in the context that is presented. We'll get into those Hebraic details. So it's a complete mismanagement of the biblical text, and we'll get into that. And that way you'll be able to support your own faith when people throw, because this is a very common Christian idea. When this idea came up was when Darwin came up with his theory in 1859, that evolution occurred. The pastors in America didn't have a rebuttal because they didn't have scientific answers. And so they started coming up with these, in my term, egghead ideas, such as the day-age theory. That way you can throw as many billions of years in there as you want. Each day is an age. Voila, problem solved. It doesn't solve any problems. It creates actually more, and we'll get into that. They also had a gap theory. The other pastors came up with this idea upon Darwin's presentation 170 years ago. They go, well, between the first and the second day, there's some language in there that might allow us to insert about 14 billion years, or however many billion years you want. Again, we'll get into that and why that is completely unsupported biblically and scientifically. There's many Christians, unfortunately, William Craig is in this category, that believe in a long age of the earth. He believes in the Big Bang theory. And we're going to show, hopefully, that that is not grounded in science as well. So what we're going to try to do is try to cover all these ideas and tell the history of where some of these ideas came from, and show that if we can establish the fact that the Big Bang did not occur, and the creation week is more supported by science, then we can actually establish two of these other religions that are sourced in the Bible that no, again, the only option we really have is that the earth is young and it was created by God just as He said in the first chapter. So, how much time do I have? Let's take a look at we might have enough time for this first argument. It's kind of a fun argument, but it is also profound. It's the moral argument, or why does evil exist in the world today? So as we go through these arguments, these are, I'm going to attempt to present these in a way so you have evidence to ground your own faith and help other people ground their faith, or maybe even start to ground a faith. The people that promote this, or people that are atheists, and what they try to do with the moral argument is shove it in the face of believers and say the fact that there is evil in the world today is proof, or certainly evidence, that God does not exist, because if there was a God like you claim in your biblical text, He certainly wouldn't allow evil to exist. It's a pretty good argument, don't you think? any answer that, these people typically are called naturalists, okay? We use that word like apply it to tree huggers, okay? Nothing wrong with tree huggers, but that's not the use of the word here in this realm. Naturalists are people that believe that the space, matter, time continuum. You ever heard that language before? You know, you can't have matter without time because matter can't exist outside of time. You can't have matter without space because you can't put it someplace, right? And so all three have to coexist to have any one. So it's matter, space, and time. And God did that in Genesis 1:1. He created the space, matter, time continuum. It's very common verbiage that you'll see in all of these kinds of research documents by people such as these. Naturalists believe that the space, matter, time continuum, mostly so anyway, sprang out of nothing. And you're probably asking, what does this have to do with the moral argument? Well, let's think for a moment. If we came out of this history, in other words, out of nothing. When I say nothing, I don't mean something like space. I mean nothing. Okay, you understand what I'm getting at? Space is something. I'm not saying that. I'm saying nothing. Okay? So these people believe that nothing, something came out of nothing. And voila, here we are. Okay? So, now it sounds crazy, but this is ubiquitous. This is a broad, there's many people in the world today. This is not an oddball, weird way of thinking. This is a very common way of thinking. Nothing, the Big Bang Theory revolves around nothing exploded into something, voila, the universe. Okay, that's the tenet of the Big Bang concept. But here's the problem. If nothing created something, then why are there morals in the world today? There should be just one governing principle: survival of the fittest. That's what evolution says how we got here. That's the driving force. So the strong survive and the weak genetic codes died off because the strong genetic codes were able to out-survive and defeat and kill the weak forms of biological evolutionary species that occurred over time. This is the thinking. Okay? So why should a moral come to be? Such as, how many give money to orphanages over in Africa or somewhere? You know, that's nice, right? That's a good thing. How many of you think that's a good thing? That you just learned the guy sitting next to you gave $50 to an orphanage in Africa to help feed the kids. Yeah, most hands went up. Well, you don't have any right to make that proclamation. Who cares? What standard are you basing that on? What is good and bad? I mean, it can be subjective. You may decide, well, that subjectively that's good. But I saw almost every hand go up. It's ubiquitous. Almost everybody in the world would say, you know, helping when America shows up after a tidal wave hits New Guinea or something, and we feed the poor and help the hurt. How many think that's a good thing? Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing when we do that. Why? If survival of the fittest is the driving force, those people are weak. In fact, those people prevent us from surviving because they're eating food. And we might need that food. In fact, that's what exactly we're shipping our food over to them. So why should we care? Survival of the fittest said good. More for me. It helps me survive. Now understand, I'm representing these naturalists. This is not my view. So don't, 20 minutes from now, I don't want to hear things out in the lobby going, John is smoking something. You know, to the naturalist viewpoint, in the end, the universe is a burned out ember. You're dead, I'm dead, nothing exists, everything collapses back on itself, entropy takes over. We'll talk about entropy later. Entropy takes over, which is the concept that everything is losing energy. So the universe is losing energy. There's no factory making more energy over here. So the longer we go, the shorter we have. If we're running, like you put a battery in your flashlight, the longer you use it, what happens? The shorter time you have left. That's the universe. The light's fading and going to go out. And when that happens, you won't need any suntan lotion. In fact, you won't be worried about other kinds of issues other than suntan lotion, won't you? Because there won't be any energy to grow food, etc., etc., etc. The universe just plummets into nothingness, a cold ember. And this is what these people believe. Okay? They believe that there is no driving force behind, there's no reason why there's life. There's no reason for your life, for my life. You have no purpose. Okay? I'm using quotes. Okay? There's no reason for their purpose. They're just a burning ember through time and fades out again. And you have no destiny, you have no purpose. So why on earth is there morals? Let me read you something. This is from William Lane Craig's book, On Guard for Students, A Thinking's Guide to Christian Faith. Let me read this. Historian Stuart C. Easton summed it up well when he writes, "There's no objective reason why man should be moral, unless morality pays off in his social life or makes him feel good." There's some morals that it's like, hey, I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. Right? I mean, that kind of moral is pretty cool. So, you live next door to this guy, and you make a deal. Look, you don't invite over drug lords, and I won't either. These people are dangerous. It might prevent either one, it might question or confront either one of our survivability. Because these people are dangerous. They shoot guns, and they're wild people. So let's make a deal. So we're safer. And so you develop a moral code. He's not going to do this, and I won't either. There's no objective reason why man should do anything save for the pleasure it affords him. But the problem becomes even worse. For regardless of immortality, if there is no God, it's difficult to see what objective standard of right and wrong would exist. Given atheism, all we're confronted with is, in Jean-Paul Sartre's words, the bare, valueless fact of existence. Moral values are either just expressions of personal taste or the byproduct of biological evolution and social conditioning. After all, on the atheist's view, what's so special about human beings anyway? They're just accidental byproducts of nature which have evolved relatively recently on an infinitesimal speck of dust called planet Earth, lost somewhere in a hostile and mindless universe, and which are doomed to perish individually and collectively in a relatively short time. Richard Dawkins' assessment of human worth may be depressing, but why, on atheism, is he mistaken when he says there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pointless indifference? We are machines for propagating DNA. It is every living object's sole reason for being. Well, that's a positive reason for living, isn't it? But that's what these people, most people, when they contemplate being atheists or agnostics, those people don't know whether to believe in God or not. They don't follow through on their thinking. They don't go, okay, now if I decide that I believe in no God, then that also means I don't have the right to judge you. Because morals are subjective. It's like, well, these are morals for me. What right do I have to put my morals on you? Isn't that like what our society is telling us now? So moral subjectivity. That's exactly what happened during or after World War II. The Allies had the audacity, from these naturalistic points of view, had the audacity to bring before the national court, the international court, all of these Nazi people that did all these vile things to the Jews, killed and maimed and slaughtered and all kinds of people. And they brought them before the court, and the Nazis' response was, well, I was only doing what the boss told me to do. And those are standards that we believed. The Nazis believed in the Aryan race, which was more superior than all the rest of our genetic codes. So why do we want to support them? They're just dogs dragging us down genetically. Let's thin out these people, and thereby the strongest genetic codes can survive. Well, that's survival of the fittest, right? That's the evolutionary driving force, supposedly. Well, that's what Nazism was, the backbone and what justified them morally to be able to do such vile things to people of all walks of life, but especially the Jews. They saw the Jews as genetically lesser. And so let's expunge them. What was the problem? Why didn't the Allies go, oh, you have the right to make your own rules in your own society and thereby violate what we think is moral, but you don't. Is that what they said? No, they didn't do that, did they? The Nuremberg courts said, you should have known. We're going back to Romans 1 and 2 here. You should have known that, and we believe you did know, that you were violating a higher code, a higher moral code that all mankind knows. And they they judged them and convicted them. Many of them were given the death sentence. Without that proclamation, the Nuremberg judges would have had no authority to make those judgments, right? If these naturalistic views are correct, why do you have the right to judge anybody? Because morals are subjective. But they appealed to a higher standard that everybody knew, just like it says in Romans. Remember we started off in Romans 1? They appealed to what Paul appealed to. No naturalist would disagree. No naturalist, effectively, I can bring quotes out to you if you wanted, would agree that the Nuremberg judges judging the Nazis after World War II violated anything. They totally believe that that was all wrong. Well, if we're just going to be burnt out embers, why is there right and wrong? Why is there something objective in the world in regards to morals rather than subjective? When it comes to theoretical concepts, naturalists have a heyday. When it comes to practical situations, they die a miserable death, at least their ideas do. Walter Martin used this example. He was talking with a guy, and this guy was promoting these particular views. And he says, okay, let me paint a scenario. You're a Jewish guy that the Nazis had put in one of their camps, and I'm the judge. I'm a Nazi judge, and I'm going to judge you. And so I'm going to start asking you all the questions to verify that you are in fact a Jew, and that you are this, that, and the other, and I find you guilty. And I proclaim as the Nazi judge that you are going to hang for your genetic code, in essence. And the way Walter did it, he actually did this to some guy that was on a radio show. And he expresses that the guy actually became the Jew sitting before the court. And he started getting all agitated and fearful, and he started to personally put himself in that situation. And all of a sudden, he's no longer a naturalist. Because he realizes being a naturalist, he has no authority to save himself. And the Nazi judge has every authority. You're living in my society. Here's the rules. If you're a Jew, you're junk. We're getting rid of you. And he goes, well, you can't do that. And the judge said, why not? Why don't I have the authority to do that? If morals are subjective, and in our society, we have the moral that we have the right to kill Jews, then you're a Jew, we can kill you. The point is that there's no practical naturalists when it comes to them falling short of some moral standard. In fact, in lots of these readings, it's very, very fascinating. These naturalists who promote this moral perspective, they have vast morals. They want to judge people for not believing in all kinds of standards that people should live by. None of them believe that it's okay to kill puppies or rape or, torture little children. Well, again, this is not me. This is them. My response is, well, under your scenario, why not? That could actually help you survive. Getting rid of kids, less of them, more food for you. Plus, they wake you up at night and they're driving you nuts all the time. I'm being facetious. I do not believe that. Although they do wake up. But see, when you don't have a moral standard, you can't make any judgment. There's all kinds of selfless acts, like we talked about getting to an orphanage or being kind to an older lady. How many got up and gave your seat to someone else recently? There was no benefit to you. You weren't going, well, I'm going to give myself my seat to this person today in the hopes that tomorrow they'll reciprocate. You don't do that. Right? You're being nice. Look, nice. Who's determining nice here? But everybody would recognize that giving your seat up is a nice thing. Well, how can that be? How can that exist? When the motivating law behind the atheistic, naturalistic view is survival of the fittest. That is not something that's going to naturally evolve. That moral code to give of yourself. And there's so many selfless things that people do. None of those are going to naturally evolve. And certainly other laws that we can all agree on that are ubiquitous all over the world. Those have got to be true. Torturing little children. Why not? Should be the naturalists' response. They have no force creating such a moral law. You're all very quiet. Is that a bad sign?
Thinking.
If God created the way things ought to be, in other words, moral codes, there should be some uniform recognition of some basic standard. Are there? Yes, there are. We've gone over some. There are basic standards of things that we realize that's a good thing. You know, there's been a whole bunch of people here that have come out and helped me on the property. That's a good thing. There's been a whole bunch of people that have done a whole bunch of work to get ready for the baby shower. And that's a good thing, right? How many people would say, nah, those aren't good things? Nobody's raising their hand. Why not? There must be some overriding standard, right? Couldn't have evolved. Some people say that, like I started this off with, some people say that the existence of evil is evidence that God does not exist. Because why would he allow evil to exist, especially this God that you purport is a holy, good God in the Bible? Why would he allow evil to occur? But rather, we should respond, no. The fact that evil exists is evidence for God. The naturalist, in other words, because if God does not exist, there should be no such thing as evil. Right? Got your mind wrapped around that? If God does not exist, there should be no evil. The driving force for naturalism is what? Survival of the fittest. That does not generate moral values such as we've talked about. So the fact that there is evil is evidence for the existence of God. There's nothing else that could account. Let me tell you, if there were, these naturalists would be using them in their debates, and they're not. There are no other reasons. The only other response that the naturalist can do is say, well, there is no evil in the world. None of them claim such nonsense. They all realize there is evil in the world. Guess what? The only resulting option you then have is that because there's evil in the world, it's proof there's also a God in the world. Questions? Comments?
But then we have the scenario of,
If the mic over there.
Hold on.
But what makes the whole thing more complicated is then we have the reality that we have supposedly moral people committing. Catholic Church could be an example with all the history that we hear about the Catholic Church. So that kind of adds a little extra conundrum to the whole thing.
It doesn't address the question, does then God exist or not exist? What it does is it goes after the problem of sin and the weakness of man. But it doesn't go so far as to question the existence of God. It goes to the point of man is a weak being, thereby he struggles to be moral because he has been, what morals have been put inside of him. He struggles to obey them, but sometimes he fails. In fact, sometimes he fails many times. And God talks about this as far as the more you disregard your own moral compass, the one God gave you, that we talked about in Romans, what ends up happening over time? God ends up going, God's a gentleman, and he ends up going, okay, I've asked you many times to do the right thing, and you've chosen contrary. And because I'm a gentleman, I am not going to take your choice away. I'm going to give you up to your choice. We see that in 1 Corinthians, 1 Thessalonians. It's a dangerous thing to continually ignore the voice of God that is placed in your own heart.
Do non-moral people have the voice of God, that moral compass inside, or they just don't have it and they...
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very few people realize that torturing children is bad. Very few people think that torturing children is bad, whether they're believers, atheists, or whatever. There's laws, there's principles that should not be there if naturalism was true, that we all recognize are there. There's good things that we realize, oh, that's a good thing. Helping that person was a good thing. You got nothing out of it. Or doing these evil things. Those are moral judgments there, and it's ubiquitous. It's all over the world. Very few societies believe that rape or torturing children is a good thing, or even a neutral thing. It's ubiquitously realized that there are certain things that if you do, you should get applauded for, and there's certain things that if you do, you should get punished for. That should not be. It could be isolated in societies, like the Nazis claimed. But there shouldn't be any uniformly recognized moral codes.
Yeah, I've seen this quote, I think it's in Isaiah, where it says, I create evil. I think it's quoted in
Isaiah
scripture
54.
somewhere. I've seen that. Can you explain?
What God is doing is, when God creates a law, unfortunately, it'd be much safer for God to just say, here's the Garden of Eden, do whatever you want. But as soon as he says, don't cross this line, what has God done? In a sense, he's created something wrong. Okay? So this is right, this is wrong, and if you do this, this is evil. If you do this, this is good. I think that's what the context is trying to.
It is in there, right?
Yeah.
It is there.
Yeah.
It's there, 54.
Yes?
I like it. Earth is like a filter. And, you know, where it says in John 14:6 that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. He wants to see who will follow his way. And his way are his words, learning his holy words, following his way. And that's why there's evil on the earth. It's a filter.
Okay.
It's like a filter. And it's just, which way are you going to follow? Are you going to follow Satan's words, which is what they did back in the garden? Or are you going to follow, the Lord's words?
Exactly. You don't want to be filtered out. Do you? You want God to go, I choose you, and you chose me. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to take care of you because you're mine. In spite of the fact that we violate his moral code. Anybody else?
I'm understanding that your point's proving if we have an atheist friend who says, why does God let evil exist in the world? And we can turn it to prove that, hey, we're proving that God does exist to you,
Right.
because there is evil in the world with the code of ethics and so forth. But I still will get people saying, but that I don't care, there's still evil in the world, so why is it happening? Can you say? Well, that's what I say to them. Well, man sinned, there's sin in the world, there's the devil, there's evil. So can you expand on that a little bit more for me, John?
I think this is one way to respond, the way that I presented it here, turn it around on it and say, no, in fact, it's actually evidence for the existence of God. But another response might be, okay, you're God, and you're really good, and you want people to love you. So you come up with this idea to create a universe with Earth on it, built with people. And you want people to love you. Okay? Now, the definition of love is not a warm, fuzzy feeling. The definition of love is something that requires, it's action, isn't it? It certainly can be identified as fondness of thought. Certainly, you think about somebody fondly, but it's also doing for them things. So husbands, if you want to love your wives, you're serving them. Love is kind, gentle, patient, long-suffering, 1 Corinthians 15, right? Read that and your relationship will start to heal. But here we have this God going, okay, I'm going to take your choice away. Because I want everybody to be with me, and I want the world to be a good, happy place where there is no sin. So I'm going to take your choice away. And I'm going to pre-program you, so when you start to think about certain things, rights and wrongs, you'll always, because of your programming, you'll always choose right. Now, what's wrong with that? Is that love?
It's not choice.
No, it's kind of like my computer. When I go home and I sit down and I start typing on a computer, it is programmed to respond to me in a certain way. It doesn't go, you typed in J-O-H-N, but I'm going to go with X-Y-Z.
That's the iPhone.
Yeah, good point. It's not making choices. It's not making moral choices on your behalf. When you decide to go to a site that maybe you shouldn't go to, it doesn't go, no, we're not going there. I know what this will lead to, and it'll lead to no good. I'm not going to let you see that movie. It's not acting morally. It's acting
in a programmed fashion. So what have we created then? A God that has created a bunch of robots. So he's stuck with, okay, I want to be loved. I don't need to be loved, but I want to be loved by my creation. The only way love can exist is if I put these people in an environment where they have free choice, free will. Now, I'm going to convince them that I'm a great guy to love, but nonetheless, they have their choice. Unfortunately, mankind chooses self over others, and certainly God. And so then we turn around and blame him for all the poor choices we made. And he's sitting there going, yeah, but if I took your choice away, you'd just be robots. In order to be people, I have to give you choice. And as soon as I take choice away, then you're no longer people. And I'm not loved because robots can't make moral decisions.
They don't really love.
Yeah, my computer really doesn't love me, even though it responds kindly to me. Most of the time. Any other questions, thoughts? Next week, we're going to talk about the cosmological argument. This is one of my favorites. Why does the universe exist at all? Where did it come? We're going to talk about causality. Very fascinating arguments. So, with that, let's pray. Father, we come before you. We just love and adore you. We thank you for all the evidence that you are revealing and will reveal in the ensuing weeks. And I pray that you give us chances to start using this material to our friends that don't agree with our belief system, and that it profoundly shakes their foundation, which you know as well as we are learning that it's a very poor foundation. Let us be the ambassadors for you to reveal that your foundation is the solid one. In your name, amen.